3, 2, 1. Release.
Doom the Dark Ages makes you feel like you have the exaggerated swagger of a really pissed off man who's slaying demons. In hell. And various other places. Fantastical places even. Today I'm going to talk about Doom the Dark Ages. I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and then the ugly. At first, my thoughts come spoiler free. Then slight spoilers somewhere in the middle. And then finally, I'm going to get to the meat and potatoes, go into the heavy spoiler stuff at the end, because what is a review without talking about the whole package, right? So, if you care, don't worry, you will be warned. But before any of that, what even is Doom the Dark Ages? In this iteration of Doom, we are back as a Doomslayer, and joining us are the Makers and the Night Sentinels, in the middle of the war against Hell, before the events of Doom 2016. Doom guy is looking a little different though. His eyes have a yellow glow through the helmet. He is under the service of the Makers, and this particular group is led by the Creed Maker. And there seems to be some tension, unease from the Sentinels, in particular King Novak, also from Doom Eternal, only this time he's a bit more corporeal. But who cares? Who cares? Because my boys never look sicker. Proof that the cure to male loneliness is just a big ass coat. We start off in a Sentinel city and we see that Hell is invading fast and strong, corrupting not only the land but its people too, turning some into worshippers of Hell and then killing the rest. This invasion is being led by a new demonic leader named Azrak, who is, to put it simply, he's trying to gain more power in Hell, but identifies that, of course, the only real threat to him is the Doom Slayer. So, it's up to the Slayer to rip and tear until it is done, prevent Azrak from becoming more powerful, and all of this with a new arsenal at the Slayer's disposal, and again, a really badass coat. That's the premise, and now to get to the point. Is this worth your time? If you like Doom already or are looking for a new shooter to play, then this is an easy yes to recommend. id Software is king at creating satisfying gunplay, and they prove again that they are not only competent, but they excel in this industry. You're gonna embark on a badass epic across many different lands, acquire deadly tools along the way. You're gonna have enough story context to lead you there, but not so much where it bogs you down and bores you if you don't care for that sort of thing. Level design and connectivity is rock solid throughout most of the game, with some peaks but also some valleys. You can also make the game as challenging as you want, with not only a variety of difficulties but also sliders in specific categories to make the game feel just right for you. The music will inspire your brain to lock in and kill, and there will be some puzzles and collectibles to break up the constant combat to give you a breather. All in all, it's a good complete package that can be worth your time if you want it. Plus, it's on Game Pass, so you don't even have to buy it. You can play it that way, right? But I do think this is a game worth owning. It is by no means a perfect game, but definitely a good game to sink your time into. Alright, so now here come the slight spoilers in gameplay, story, and environments. The main juicy details of this package. First, let's start off with the good of this game. id Software said they wanted to go back to the roots a bit, back to the OG Doom games where the main loop was to shoot, dodge left, dodge right, incoming orbs. So the Dark Ages is just that, but in the modern context. It is a good return to form. However, id Software also wanted to make a game that, that was a little bit different from the rest. Doom 2016 was a revival of the franchise. Doom Eternal was a lot of the same, but faster, more intense. So Doom the Dark Ages was id trying something new. And they achieved that by turning the Doomslayer into an Avenger. You get a throwable chainsaw shield. You're like Captain America, and this baby always comes back. That paired with a bigger focus on melee, and goddamn do I love the melee. As satisfying as it is to shoot weapons in this game, the melee definitely fulfills a yearning I've had since 2016 Doom, a craving that only became stronger when Doom Eternal introduced the Crucible and the Hellbreaker in the DLC. That, comboed with the shield to block and parry, but also slam into targets, really nails the tagline of stand and fight, and feel badass doing it. Going back to the guns though, id always makes sure that each weapon feels great to shoot, and there's a lot of different ones here. Each weapon's aesthetic and sound design is greatly suited for the slaughtering of forces of hell, with enemy variety that you're gonna want to switch between weapons to fit the need of different situations. However, if you really want to power through with your favorite weapon, you can definitely take that approach, as the ammo economy is not too stingy this time around. And to explain this a little further, I mean that certain enemies will be more susceptible to certain weapons. For example, the Revenant takes more damage from the Accelerator, a plasma weapon, and it fits the sandbox when you're fighting demons who are at range. You could of course choose to close the gap and just use the Super Shotgun to blast an enemy in the face. Certain enemies do have counters for you being too close, however, which really adds a nice complexity to encounters, so it doesn't just feel like you have a one strat fits all. Speaking of counters, there is a big focus on pairing enemies with your new shield. Most enemies have a certain parryable attack, which again adds to the dynamic of stand and fight, which helps set this iteration of Doom apart from the rest. The parry on default settings is pretty forgiving, I won't lie, but not overly so, especially on your first playthrough. You can always tweak the parry window to make it easier or harder to pull off based on your own preference. Guns, shields, and melee strikes, all these tools and mechanics make the combat loops so satisfying to partake in, and it's the synergy that you can create as you get more weapons, more upgrades in your arsenal that helps to keep the combat fresh as you progress through the levels. Jumping into level design now. There is a mix of open world design and a classic linear but intertwined design. Open world levels are definitely id Software trying their hand at something new for Doom, giving you the liberty to choose where to go first, and it keeps you from feeling like you're just going from room to room killing more guys and being locked into a room until you finish your chores, so to speak. In these open levels, you can start an encounter and just leave if you choose to, which is nice, but come on, let's be real. You're the Doomslayer. You're not just gonna run away, right? You're gonna stand and fight. Classic linear design is still here though, to prevent Doom from going full open world, and is consistent in quality for you to traverse this universe, with subsequent levels getting more and more interesting based on the context of the environment. And man, the environment in Doom the Dark Ages is just... Doom has always been a good looking game with its graphics quality and art design since 2016, but Doom the Dark Ages just takes it to the next level. Again, it feels like you've embarked on an epic journey, and even though you are witnessing some horrific locations, god damn, they're beautiful. Horrific beauty is the best way I can summarize these environments. They also make these environments feel very distinguishable from one another with a very simple trick: different color palette. I love it, man. There is a terrible but awe-inspiring imagery here that will often have you stopping to smell the demonic roses, and you'll never feel like you're fighting in the same space repeatedly. So much detail has been packed into every level, letting you get immersed, and as a little bonus, a lot of the environment is interactable, so you can move or break stuff and it'll react to you, which I always appreciate and look for in video games. One more quick thing I need to touch on is that outside the Doomslayer, you also take control of an Atlan, a huge mechanized Mike Tyson, and your very own mecha dragon named Sarah. Or Sarah. I don't really know. I'm pretty sure it's Sarah. This game is about epic spectacle, and these two gameplay experiences really lean hard into it. Whether it's throwing down fisticuffs with titans, or mowing them down with a minigun the size of a skyscraper, and bullets the size of 18-wheelers, or flying your pet dragon, shooting, chasing, and slitting throats. They let you be part of the war against hell in different ways, and are generally short but bombastic bursts. Now to change gears here, and to prevent this from being a full-on Glaze Fest, let's talk about the bad of this game. Because of course, almost, no game is perfect, except of course. id Software wanted to put more focus on the story, and they definitely achieved the act of doing so. Is it good though? Man, let me explain. The story has cool looking cutscenes to help the Doomslayer aura farm, and there's enough simple beats to drive the narrative forward, and it gives you an excuse to visit all these fantastical places. However, it's still very bare bones. It's far too simple for them to say they put a lot more focus into the story. The characters introduced are left way too vague. You meet King Novak and his daughter Thera, and the Betrayer before he was the Betrayer, and they all represent the Night Sentinels. Enemy wise, you have Azrak and the Witch. In the middle of this, we have the Creed Maker. What do all these characters want or feel? Beats me, dog. I just know Azrak wants more power over the forces of hell just because the Witch made a deal with him for something related to her god. The Maker sent the Creed as an envoy to be in charge of the Slayer and to work with the Night Sentinels, a middleman if you will. And the Sentinels are just fighting hell, well, because they have to. It's all very simple, and there's almost no depth given to these characters on their personality, their motivations. All of them are very flat characters, with the exception of one, and this change you basically see from a mile away. The amount of MacGuffins in this game are also way one too many. Azrak wants this relic because it will buff his stats. The Slayer wants to obtain another relic so your shield can get stronger. The Slayer will also bring two different relics together to make a key so we can then use this portal. Alright, I guess if I have to. I do want to keep killing demons and I want to finish the game, so I will. It's all simple enough to bring the narrative forward, but it definitely leaves a lot to be desired. If id wanted to bring the story out of the codex and into the forefront, they could have focused more on the characters and their motivations and also their presence, because another thing is that they're barely with us. We sure do see them a lot in cutscenes, but that's pretty much it. Maybe a calm communication here every now and then. Azrak has the bare minimum effect on the story. He's the main villain. He's the whole reason why we have to fight in Doom the Dark Age, but he barely invokes any emotion from the player. I don't ever really feel compelled to fight him except for the reason that I have to. His design too is kind of goofy. I can't even lie, the first cutscene reveal of him, I couldn't help but laugh a little with his beady little eyes, his white tiny face, his goofy little semicircle horns, and then the B-plot villain, the Witch. She's pretty much just annoying once or twice in the story, during cutscene even, and that's as much as she achieves. As the main antagonist of this game, they don't serve much purpose except almost being MacGuffins themselves. Moving on to the lesser enemies, the Army of Hell itself. As much as I do love fighting them, they have a little bit too much overlap between them this time around. A lot of their projectiles are identical to each other with some exceptions, and they share too much in aesthetic design. Sometimes when they're at a distance, I couldn't tell exactly which demon I was looking at since they share too much of the same colors and or shape. And really, I'm only ragging on this because when compared to previous Doom games, demons were always so discernible from one another, near or far. And because we are playing Doom in a medieval context, I kind of figured more would go into this theme, but a lot of returning demons are returning in just about the same way as they were made from Doom Eternal, apart from some minor tweaks. I'm doing my best not to compare this game to previous installments, but this one I couldn't help. Not to say there's no innovation made with enemies. Cacodemons are way more menacing this time around, now more than ever. Before, when they were essentially just fodder demons, but there was definitely a lack of change overall here in enemy design. Things could have been better, especially since there's nothing but single player at launch, but they're not deal breakers in my opinion. Final tidbit I'd say about the bad is that not having a hub to see all the collectibles, weapons, arsenals, armors, and Easter eggs was a bit of a letdown. The Fortress of Doom in Doom Eternal served a purpose narratively and gameplay wise, but it would have been nice to unlock some kind of hub at the end. I love my hubs, as you know if you've seen a previous video of mine, and just seeing the collectibles on a menu screen is extremely lackluster. OG Modern Warfare 2 had that museum at the end of the campaign, so why not do something like that, you know? Final quick note on the bad category. Even though I did like the music of Doom the Dark Ages, I even said in the beginning, it will inspire you to kill, I also wanted to acknowledge a comment I saw. Someone said, Doom music without Mick is just heavy metal. And I'm inclined to agree. They try to fit the vibe of Dark Ages with a more bombastic drum, a killer horn sting, and even though it's good, nothing is a super standout song. Nothing is memorable as the riffs and shreds of Mick Gordon. Now it's time to talk about the ugly of Doom the Dark Ages. Things I really had gripes with, and it brings the overall package down in my opinion, whether it's stylistic or design choices that are integrated into the bones of this package, meaning they can't be changed, they can't be fixed. Right off the bat, let's talk about jumping in this game. Again, not to compare too much to the other titles, but in Doom 2016 and Eternal, you can do a double jump, but it is not here, and you really do miss it in gameplay and in exploration. Even if you haven't played the previous installments, you'll feel like your hops are just shy of being viable. A lot of projectiles can be jumped, but because the base jump is so short, it never feels like a good option to do. It's like knowing you can hop over a short fence, but are too scared to jump in the fear of eating absolute shit, so you just don't do it. You can sprint jump to help boost the height, but it never felt organic or even fun to do so. Typically, you just end up blocking most of the time or bobbing and weaving. Then, the arenas you fight in sometimes have elevated floors, high enough to know you need mad hops to climb them, but low enough to be within reach. Except they're not. Ultimately, if you are going to at least remove the double jump, I don't know, I'd make the base jump strong enough to compensate for its absence. Doom Guy may be heavy, but he's also extremely agile too. I can't see the reason for having such high horizontal speed, but virtually no vertical movement to follow it. On the exploration side of things, because of the simplification in movement, as in no double jump and no dashing, we get a lot, and I mean a lot, of mediocre exploration and secrets. There's a plethora of these secrets that are just out in the open, and reaching them will say you discovered a secret, but there's no real gratification to it because of how simple it was to obtain it. I don't even mind the placement that much, it's just the fact that you'll label it as a secret. You play a little tune to let me know it's a secret, but really it was just a codex entry on the right and the main objective was to the left. There are some really badass secrets too, where they can be a full-on trip. Like I said earlier, depending on the environment, there's a level where reality, gets a little funky, perhaps a little loosey-goosey, and the secrets definitely take full advantage of that, and they mess with your mind quite a bit, but too many of these secrets are subpar gimmies that it really overshadows the good secrets you can find. Continuing on the collectible topic, right, there are a lot of secrets that are only accessible at a certain point, meaning there is no backtracking if you missed it. Last time I compared to previous installments, I swear, but there's already a remedy to this. In Doom 2016 and Eternal, before you moved on to the next level, right at the end, you had a chance to teleport back to previous parts of the level to collect what you missed, and I personally really appreciated that. Will I be replaying Doom the Dark Ages? Yes, of course, but I don't want to be forced to do so, because I missed a secret and because I am a collectionist. So I'm going to have to go back and do it, but being forced to do so by having to restart a whole level just really pissed me off, especially when, again, this was a consistent feature from previous installments with no real reason to remove it. I don't think anyone was complaining about having this quality of life feature before. Also, I personally haven't seen too many people complain about this next point, but golly, do I despise hit scan enemies in Doom. I never knew I did until they included them here, and I gotta say, they just don't belong in this sandbox. I 100% understand why they're in the game, and I can only recall the Cyber Demon and Arachnotrons being culprits of hit scan damage, so it's not too overbearing. But every time I got peppered by those stupid little shots on my screen, it interrupted combat in a pestering way, in no real way that was challenging. Their function is to force you to 1. Use your shield to block incoming damage, and 2. To force you in close for a close range encounter, especially with Cyber Demons, because once you do, it turns into a 1v1 stand battle where you hit, counter, hit, counter, hit, counter until one of you finally taps out. The problem is that there are other demons around you and you have to make a choice, right? You have to make a choice of dealing with the Cyber Demon in this supposed 1v1, except it's not a 1v1 because his boys will start jumping you. So what's the alternative? Clear out the rest of the demons and then work your way to him. But if you take this route, he'll just keep peppering you on with this little hit scan damage, and unless you're blocking, he's not gonna miss and you're gonna take damage. So all in all, I understand the purpose, but it just doesn't mix well in this type of sandbox. Maybe it's a skill issue, maybe I'm just trash, right? I can't deny it did get me killed from time to time, but when everything else works so well in cohesion to fuck you up and you mirror that energy, multiply by 20 and fuck them up as well, this particular aspect of combat just didn't sit well with me. Alright, heavy spoiler talk incoming, because now I'm gonna talk about the ending. So if you really care about the ending and don't want to know what happens, this is the part where you skip ahead, my guy. Gonna play some elevator music here. It's just for me to remember that, and also put some notes. The ending is the part of the whole package, so I do want to share my thoughts on this, as it does have a major impact on my opinion. So, warning over, here it is. The ending was enjoyable to play through, but honestly a bit disappointing, and it goes hand in hand with what I had mentioned earlier with the overly simple story and weak characterization of the antagonists. It has a lot of cool spectacle, no doubt. Again, it gives the Doomslayer a chance to aura farm some more by showing that this man is literally too angry to die. Even as a zombified corpse, he gets his ass out of hell by hijacking the Fairy of Souls, ramming into the gates of the mortal plane. But that's as good as I can say, because after that the main focus is on Azrak, who becomes more powerful with the relic he stole from the Night Sentinels, and also, again spoiler alert, the Wraith spirit that lives inside Thera, whom of which he siphons the power. Again, gameplay is fun as you return as the recently resurrected Slayer and kill all the demons and destroy their siege weapons to stop the offensive. But with all the cards on the table, nothing special is played out. There is no memorable or outstandingly difficult encounter. It's just everything you've already fought up against this entire time, all thrown at you again in no particular or meaningful way. After stopping the siege, you do get some spectacle again, as there are only 2 Atlans ready for combat, King Novix and a spare, which is missing an arm. So of course, the wise man that he is, King Novik gives his Atlan to the Slayer, and you proceed to throw down with the same titans you already have been doing, just in larger quantities. There is a unique Atlan boss fight at the end of this sequence where you get into the ring with another Cthulhu god, but it is honestly more flair than it is substance. All very badass looking, but not too meaningful or impactful. Then the Doom guy aura farms again by choosing to have a street fight.
You thought this was gonna be a street fight? Goddamn right it is.
With Azrak, because stepping on him with an Atlan is not something Goku would have wanted. A classic badass trope that I'm sure even Batman would understand. But you just fight in a barren small circle arena, and it's just, you know, it's just a fight with the major antagonist of the story, but nothing much to it. Azrak, although on Reddit steroids, he doesn't challenge the Doom guy in any significant way. The fight really does epitomize the stand and fight concept, and although successful, it's not too exciting either. You rinse and repeat the counter hit counter combo, mostly stay close, because if not, Azrak will launch an OP spear that would damage you greatly, break your shield stamina altogether, which leaves you defenseless for a bit. Then, Doom the Dark Ages commits the cardinal sin of gaming. You, for but a moment, lose the fight during a cutscene. Azrak stabs the Slayer, and as things start to look grim, Sarah, your pet dragon, comes to rescue his master, only to get one shot. Yeah man, I got pretty pissed after that. He took my pet dragon and it wasn't even glorious. So after some more fighting, the Slayer beats Azrak's ass for making him lose yet another pet to the forces of hell. Rest in peace, Daisy. and rips out the relic from him, ultimately stopping Azrak's invasion and saving Thera. But for some reason the story doesn't end there. No, Azrak actually had an escape rope in his back pocket the whole time, and he just fucks off back into hell under the Slayer's nose. To bring this to a close, I'll sum up this next level like this. You go back into hell and you kill more demons. This is a Doom game after all, so what do you expect? I can't even be mad because that is what I signed up for, right? However, by this point, it does feel a bit like bloating. Finally, you get back to Azrak and it's time for round 2. Except now it's a 2v1 since the witch is now joining the fight. And you have a less powerful Azrak, but he does all the same things. I can't lie, it was pretty satisfying to beat the snot out of these two fools, but in a more cathartic sort of way. Probably because I was mad about Sarah, to be honest. Finally, you kill both of them, and a cutscene plays to tie up the story, and it's just kind of whatever. Doom Guy goes to become the Batman of hell, just patrolling and killing demons. They even talk about him like how Commissioner Gordon talks about Batman in The Dark Knight. It's almost kind of funny. Thera gives a speech about taking pride in being a Night Sentinel, and the Betrayer's son is teased a little bit since he is meant to turn into the icon of sin. Again, big spoilers, right? Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention earlier, but you'll kill Creedmaker. You kill a Creedmaker way earlier in the story, and of course you do because he was never on your side. But it's kind of no surprises there. You just kill him, and that's it. It was a fun boss fight, but that's all I have to say about that. So, final thoughts on the ending is just to say, although still a good Doom game experience, it almost has no real significance on the back end. It's surrounded by badass spectacle for badass spectacle's sake, and for a game that sacrificed all forms of multiplayer and other content and side content, it's a shame they couldn't end this story with more of a bang. Alright, spoilers over. So all in all, Doom the Dark Ages is one of the best games to come out in the year 2025, and even though it is not a perfect package, the strengths it carries come at the player really hard, and I have no doubt in my mind when compared to previous installments, it will rank as the best Doom game out of the last 3 for a lot of gamers. id Software had the choice of doing the same thing over again and trying to replicate their success with Doom Eternal, but I love and appreciate the fact that they decided to try something new while keeping the core of what makes a Doom game a damn good game. Personally, I had a blast. I'm very much looking forward to its DLC and seeing how they take this formula further, whether it's in an upcoming DLC or even in subsequent titles. Alright, so thank you for making it to the end of the video. It took me forever to put this one out, right? I finished it a while ago, but I really wanted to sit on it and think about my thoughts on the game. End of the day, it's kind of like how JC said, you can't listen to a song once and have a good opinion on it. You kind of gotta let it sit, you gotta let it cook a little bit. But yeah, if you liked the video, give me a like. If you want to talk about the game and your experience, yeah, give me a comment. I do want to talk about what happened. I mean, I know this is my opinion, but I'm genuinely curious what other people think who played the game and finished it, right? And even if you didn't. And if you think it's worth it, give me a subscribe. It'll definitely help me out. So, I just want to say, have a good rest of your day. Peace.